In the 1930s, the Candage family built a sawmill just west of Anaconda, Montana. Visitors who drive west of Anaconda today can still see Candage Lane and can visit a famous bicycle landmark. But hidden amongst the familiar sights are the remains of what was once a thriving operation, the Candage sawmill. At its peak, the sawmill, the Candage ranch, and the logging business employed around 40 local men and women. In the 1950s and 60s, we begin to see a wave of mechanization and transformation of the logging and mill industries in Montana. Joe Candage took over the sawmill after the death of his father, the mill's founder, and with that change, the multi-generational logging legacy of the Candage family began. The mill and logging business supplied regional mills, the Anaconda smelter, and other nearby clients. Instead of the big log trucks we see today, the workhorse of transportation was the railroad. The Candages shifted to transporting materials by truck and pup in the 1960s. This shift was an inventive means of circumventing the high cost of the railroad system. As part of family lore, the Montana Department of Transportation had to develop a means of permitting these expanded truckloads just for the Candages. In the 1960s, an increase in air quality controls and environmental constraints changed the regulations regarding burning residuals from the sawmill. Facing the high costs of potentially temporary upgrades, the mill was auctioned off on May 18, 1971. Items in the mill were tagged and liquidated for sale. After closing the mill, Candage Logging, a portion of the prior organization, continued its operations. The now solely logging company maintained ownership of the logging equipment and trucks, and continued with the open logging contracts once held by the Candage sawmill.
Pretty much environmental restraints that we had to follow. Couldn't keep up. For a mom and pop, yeah. Ken and I really didn't have any interest in pursuing the sawmill.
What?
This was our interest, yeah. Yeah, they used to work at the sawmill.
The Larengos.
Yeah, when they were in high school. Yeah. Oh, I can't remember my earliest memories. Bob was just, yeah. In fact, I tried to hire their dad to cut timber for me. He was one hell of a good timber faller, and I knew that, and I wanted to hire him. But it didn't work out, so I hired the boys.
Roy was deeply devoted to his family and spent over 50 years working side by side with them. He operated a skidder until the age of 87 and passed away at 89 in 2017. Roy asked that everyone skip flowers and buy beer, and where better to meet up with our Larango clan and to have a beer than Anaconda's own Smelter City Brewing.
I started falling timber on the weekends when I was in high school. But during the week, I worked for Ken and Joe at the sawmill. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun. Oh, we'd stack lumber and clean the sawmill out. And then they put in a chipper. So they had stockpiled slabs for how long?
Oh, we hauled them down and dumped them forever.
So then when they bought the chipper, we hauled the slabs back up and chipped all the slabs.
We buried a lot.
Because that's where Roy first started too, is working at Candage's.
Yeah.
You guys both worked for Candage's?
I went there one day and said, walked up there and I said, you guys hired anybody? He goes,
This is shortly after they moved from Butte.
yeah. And he goes, you want to work? And I said, well, yep, got something. He says, what do you do? I said, what do you got? He goes, come here with me. So he took me down to the mill and he says, when you're after school, you can clean out the mill and you stack the lumber. And if there's a full unit, band it, stack it where it goes.
And your dad was logging then with
Yep.
Bob. Yeah.
Bob.
Yeah. So they were logging somewhere else, and you guys were working for Candage's. It really is kind of
I
ironic.
was going to school, so I wasn't there when it closed. He was.
Yeah, well, where was it when it closed?
Man.
I worked for a couple of months after.
Well,
You know, 'cause
Roy
we had
and
our
Grandpa
self-loader. We bought that in the
formed
80s.
their partnership in shortly before in 1970 after you graduated, because the first skidder that you bought was not long before we got married in 71. I remember that.
Bought a 540 John Deere. We got rid of the mount loader because it kept making actions. That was a lemon.
Yeah,
But then when they bought the first rubber tired skidder in Montana, when he worked, they started logging like in early 60s. My dad, stuff. When the mine had go on strike, they were, and every time that the mine would go on strike, they'd have like anywhere from a month to 3 months, sometimes longer than that, where they worked with us. And they were, hey, so they went to work for the pole plant view with cut posts, and so they went logging for him.
You know, the falling back then was all done by hand with chainsaws.
Yeah. Yep.
yeah. Sometimes you had to walk for a mile to get
Yeah,
to the strip.
exactly.
You used to cut 200 logs a day by hand.
That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Roy haul. I mean, these two were hauling like 24 hours. They wouldn't even shut the truck off.
Week at a time.
And
we'd go-
Cliff said one time we weren't gone that much.
He
And
belonged on
me
a
and Judy
bowling
said,
league.
you were on a bowling league in Johnson.
The closure of the Candage mill would later become something of a political flashpoint for Joe Candage, who ran for state representative in 1974. He would remain in office until 1981, when he would leave politics after a time of heavy political push. Near the end of his tenure, Joe Candage proposed a number of bills that would focus on industry. He had 17 different pieces of legislation, ranging from requiring legislative approval of air quality standards to changing the makeup of the State Board of Health to throwing environmentalists who blocked developments in jail. In the Great Falls Tribune, they write, Candage's sword environmentalist, destructionist, whom he blamed for shutting down his logging and sawmill operations in 1971, and that's the reason for the legislation. Candage was only aware after the closing of the mill that a variance could have been made available. The 1970s and 80s were a time of great change in Anaconda. Other industries struggled under increasing regulation, resulting in job loss and shrinking of the local economy. For the remainder of the 1970s, Joe and Ken Candage continued to work as a logging company, working through the contracts carried over from the mill, and at one time having up to 15 employees, but doing many of the tasks themselves.
Oh, everything changed. Everything changed. You know, and there was a time period there between the, like the, I was the early 60s to the early 90s, that period in there, things have changed in some else technology. And they still are. I mean, phenomenal.
So
this timber to the boys. And opened up today's a public viewing for anybody that wanted to come up. I'm sure we'll get better shots of him. See, he's laying down a tree now. They just snipped off for the skidder to come in. That's Kenny driving the snippers. I really don't know how good pictures I'm getting, but you don't want to get anywhere too close in case something would happen. There goes James Reese from, yeah. Inside the snippers. This is where he sits and runs his machine. He's got a radio. And I guess they were sightseeing on the way up. These are people interested in seeing how logging operations operates. Some of the people coming out to watch the logging operations here.
In 1988, the Candage family joined over 300 logging trucks in the Great Northwest Log Haul. This was a massive demonstration to protest federal timber policies and to support the timber industry. It would be the last big show of force by the logger for many decades. The convoy traveled from Darby, Montana to Everett, Washington, carrying roughly 1 million board feet of timber. The trucks stretched well over 30 miles, depending on spacing and terrain. And with the passing of Joe Candage Sr. in 1992, the time of politics seemed to be at an end.
I would say the log processor, watching those limbs come off, and I'm not at the end of the chainsaw, watch them fall off. Do you agree? Yeah. Watching them alpine fir go through the liver.
Yeah.
This off, hang on. Patty! Patty!
As the logging industry continued to mechanize, and the labor force and the need for labor in the logging industry continued to shrink, both the Candage and Larengo families became smaller operations, ever more focused on family, innovation, doing what they loved most, logging.
Okay. Joe, how do you want yours? Now say what this is called again, Patty. What's this thing called we're watching? Anyway, whatever this thing calls, Kenny's in it, running it. Well, I wish you.
I wish there was prettier timber. Kind of small stuff up here. Boy, that looks nice.
That's Joe Candage, and there's Kenny Candage. Hey.
Hey, stop, man!
Paul Candage is taking a picture.
There we go. There we go. Shove it up. That should be pretty though, because the sun was hitting on it more. It should show up pretty fine.
Yeah.
It's got there, right there, my thumb. Now they just.
He was with me a lot.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And that's what it was all about.
We used to take our kids to camp, like down by Dillon. We would leave on Sunday night, we'd pack up the groceries and we'd put our trailer down there. We'd stay in the trailer all week. And then we'd come home on Friday, do laundry, get groceries, and head back to the woods. We lived in the woods. Those boys loved it. Brian, Paul, and Joe.
It was their life.
Oh, they talk about it to this day, how much fun they had, and they played trucks, and
You
they were in
know,
the river. They were in the river.
I must not have been. I must not have
Abby
been
was a
there for
little
that.
short, pudgy kid.
Yeah. And Grandpa Roy rolled that inner tube. And that inner tube was like this tall, out of the skidder. And
Yeah.
it'd come running down.
Like
He'd come
8
running.
feet tall.
Yeah. And Hammy was looking behind him. He was screaming.
I wish I'd have saw that.
Oh, you should have seen that. That was funny. You asked
Yeah, they
him-
were down there
you
every
asked
day.
Hammy, he would know it.
Every
He'd still
weekend
remember
we
it.
worked on the truck.
They were there.
There wasn't a weekend we never worked on it.
No.
I know it.
My name's Hammy Mitchell, KLM Contracting. Everybody wants to know how I get Hammy. Hammy is actually my initials. My first name is Harold. My middle name is Arthur. My last name is Mitchell, obviously, so Ham. Just been called that my entire life, so I stick with it. I'm a dirt chicken for KLM. uh, I am the managing partner for the excavation side of KLM Contracting. I have been doing excavation since 1995. I left Anaconda. There was no work in Anaconda, and I went to Las Vegas. My older brother had went there ahead of me, and there was an abundance of work, and I went to work for a small company there working with my brother, and just kind of started my story from there. I like excavation because we're outside all day, all the time. It does have its ups and downs when it's cold outside. Like right now, it's starting to get cold outside, but it's freedom. The other reason I like doing excavation is young guys. It's when we're growing up as kids, we all thought about playing in a sandbox with trucks and tractors and all the little machines in the dirt, and we're just big kids in a sandbox out here having fun doing what we did as kids. So Brian and I grew up playing Dukes of Hazzard and playing in the dirt as kids. So this is kind of living our dream out. Brian is my lifelong childhood best friend. Brian's family, the Lorengo family, had their logging business, their shop right below my childhood home up by Yankee Flats. And on the weekends, Brian and his brother and his cousin Joe would come up, and we would tromp and around Yankee Flats and go build forts out in the middle of nowhere, and just have a grand old time. I met Kevin Candage through Brian, and then also I used to run the concrete plant, be a part of the concrete plant in Anaconda for 10 or 11 years. And Kevin was always coming in and asking me questions about dirt work and materials and stuff like that, and I helped out Kevin. And then when Kevin had got serious about starting the dirt side, he had approached me and about coming to work for Candage. So when I went to work for the Candages, after working for them for 3 months, Kevin and Carl were talking about buying out their fathers, Ken and Joe. And I knew immediately after working with Ken and Carl and Joe and Ken that I wanted to be a part of that team. So I asked those guys if I could buy in. And they agreed. There was a little reluctancy there because, there's a lot of history with the Candage family and what they've built. But they also seen my capability on the dirt side and where we were going to go with it. And then I had the bright idea of telling Brian about our idea. And he says, well, Ham, I got a really good stupid idea. He said, why don't we buy out my family too and merge and make it one big company? And so we presented it to Kevin and Carl, and everybody was like, yeah, because our big thing is the 5 elders that we bought out have worked and grinded every day of their life. They have no quit in them. And I respect that very much. And I want to make sure that they have a good retirement. They could be like any other business owner and just sell their business and not want to be a part of it and just live off Social Security the rest of their life and what they get off their companies. But they truly look at everything they do with our company like I do. Like they own the business still. So they make good decisions and they look out for our business still, because they still have, we're still buying the businesses from those guys. So they're involved every day with our decision making.
I just enjoy doing what I do.
Yep.
If I didn't, I wouldn't.
Well, I'm proud to be part of KLM. That's where I'm at today. Yeah. And give the boys all the credit. Really, it's fabulous. Yeah. Pretty excited for them. I think they got a pretty bright future.
I think by the time that
If they get along good.
Brian and them presented what they wanted to do to these guys, I mean, it was well thought out, and they were serious.
They had their ducks in a row.
Yeah.
They did. Yeah. They're pretty smart guys.
And I mean, Roy was all in, and I think Cliff was thinking it was time, but I wasn't sure about that.
But when you're selling it to 4 different people, I mean, there aren't many companies that are going to have 4 owners that are completely night and day from them. I mean,
All good boys.
I grew up with the Lorengos. I was out in the woods with Roy riding in the skidder, drinking coffee as a 7, 8-year-old boy, and high on coffee all day long with Roy, caffeinated up. And I'd go with Roy Jr. Steroid. We used to run around in the old International log truck, and I loved going to the sawmills. And Bob and Cliff both. They were just really good people to me. They were almost like second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth fathers to me. They always looked out for us as kids, and they used to chase me down the road with a big skidder tube, inner tube, and scare the living hell out of me. Clifford and Judy avidly remember that very well. Yeah, they used to chase me down that, and I'd take off running, and Judy would pick me up. My little legs still be going 100 miles an hour, and I was scared to death of that thing. So yeah, I still remember that to this day. Yep.
Brian Lorengo, KLM Contracting, 3rd generation logger, and working on a 4th. And that's what's cool about this company is we get a mentor, we get a lead, and that's something that's pretty passionate for me.
It's been fun, and it still is enjoyable to work with my dad and my son and see 3 generations still working together. I think just visiting with them and seeing them kind of mentor some of our younger staff, especially our drivers. He's patient, and he's a pleasure to be around. And I think that's what I admire about him most. I think that's probably what our young drivers would say the same thing.
I'm Kevin Candage, proud 4th generation logger and partner here at KLM Contracting. I've always loved the Lorengos. They're just the salt of the earth people. They're fun, they're awesome, they're hard workers, they're amazing at what they do. There's just no better people around. And I always, ever since I worked with them the first time, I wanted to find a way to work together with them in the future. And Brian's been a big part of my life for a long time, just through the MLA and becoming his friend as we got to know each other. And he was there for me when I was having a kind of hard time, and I kind of learned what kind of guy he was, and I knew that he was the kind of guy I would trust. And I love the idea of building something and being my own boss and being able to employ awesome people and just build a fun team. And I like the challenges that go along with being a business owner, and I like the idea of being able to just do different things.
I've always wanted to be a business owner. I've always wanted that because every job I've ever had as an employee, I treated it as if I owned that company for production, for looking out for the better cause of the company.
I'm Carl Candage, Vice President of Forestry for KLM and Executive Partner. I grew up in it. Every chance I got growing up, I went with my dad and uncle, whether it was in the log truck or just in a pickup, sitting around. And then when I could, I was in the machines with them. Having the elders work with us has definitely helped us, that they have guided us along and not only been able to fill in on places, but whenever we have questions, we can go to them with guidance.
I mean, it's their identity, it's who they are, and they're going to do it as long as they can. And it'd be one thing if they were just bebopping around and getting in the way and not being productive, but that is not the case. They're still incredible at what they do. They're still the best at what they do, even at their age, and that's just proof of their mettle and who they are and how amazing they are. And if I end up being half as skilled or half as talented or having half the mettle that they do, then I'd be pretty happy with myself.
But things are so much different right now. The way we did it back then doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work today. It's different. You can't go out there and say, "Wow, we did it this way," or "This is the way because it worked then." No, these are different times. Yeah, it takes different minds. Yeah, and these guys think out of the box, and that's good. Find different ways of doing things. And we were kind of, toward the end, we were kind of set in our way. And we realized that, but it's just the way we wanted to do it. Good story.
Moving forward, going to be more technology in the equipment, maybe some remote equipment, and also working steeper ground.
Oh man, they get 300 plus years of logging experience, and folks that still do it every day and enjoy it. And I think that's probably the coolest part about this occupation is if you just research the most satisfied employee, logging's in the top 2 or 3 every year, if not number one. So I think that's what's cool is you get to work in a place you love. And if you don't love where you work, go find someplace else to work. But I think that's why you got guys, particularly the elders, that are still working into their 70s and 80s. They enjoy what they do, and fortunately for us and for them both, is they're still healthy.
Their ridiculous amount of wisdom and experience. I mean, you cannot buy that shit. They're incredible, and that is totally invaluable. And they're the best at what they do. They always have been. So how lucky are we that we get to learn and work with the best? It's not like they're just sitting there telling us what to do. They're there in the trenches working with us, and that's really cool. Having them to fall back on, I definitely feel more confident having them around just because they've been in every situation. They've seen everything. They always have a good idea or have a good solution. And not having that basically safety net, I guess, is scary.
The thing I'm most proud of, I would have to say, the quality of work we do and being able to work with a great group of guys.
We're getting to be a bigger company, but we hold those values pretty tight to our chests about family and friendship, and looking at our employees like we value them. They're just not a number. The big deal for me about employees is not just throwing them on a piece of machinery or just say, hey, go do this. I always follow everything up with, hey, thank you or please. And a lot of people ask me why I do that. I think it's a respect thing myself. A lot of people just yell at their employees and don't give them any guidance. The big thing that I look forward to is we have several young guys in our company that are thriving with our leadership and our mentorship. And we have older guys in our company, all the way from Joe Candage down to Mike Hunter, Dace McQuarrie, that mentor our guys every day.
I don't know how big I want to get it. I guess we'll know when we get there, huh?
We've grown significantly over the last 3 years. I don't see that changing. There's some diversification we're looking at doing in the near future, both from the logging side of things and the firewood side of the business. So I don't see any reason to see we're not adding, another, 10, 15 employees over the next 3 to 5 years. So that's going to be challenging, is finding the right people to grow with. And we've been fortunate that we've done that so far.
KLM's fortunate that they have the help that they do. Yeah, it's just a great group. Yeah, you have to be pretty well educated to be a logger today. Yeah, absolutely. You got to have a good mind. We used to work in bigger timber because the market really wasn't there for the smaller stuff. But as soon as the market became available, we adapted and we're working on the smaller stuff. For logging to really take off again, all we need is get the infrastructure for the product in place. Away we go. Because the material, the resources there.
It's the kind of thing, how do you, when you realize you have it and you think, how on earth did we get along without it? That's exactly what the shop is. It's been incredible to have a place to meet, to be centralized, to store things, to work out of, to have our offices, to have our firewood yard. It's a great location. We're truly blessed. It's absolutely awesome. It makes me wonder what the next big thing coming down the pipeline is, where we're going to say, how on earth did we get along without that? I'll find it.
Troy wears his heart on his shoulders. He's a hardworking kid, and it's the same thing with Carter. Carter. We have a succession plan for our company, and there's a K, there's an L, and there's an M, and we're hoping that follows through.
I think the future of KLM is just, honestly, I think it's going to go a long, long, long way. I think KLM's got a bright future ahead of it as far as the logging and the dirt side. I think, well, myself, Carter, Lorengo, and Dominic, I think we'll end up all pulling together, and I think we'll keep KLM going. I mean, you could see what we have going right now as far as we have this nice, awesome shop now. We have awesome equipment that we get to run. I think KLM will go on for a long time.
I'll probably stay here my whole career if I can be put in the machine and everything. Hopefully, I got a lot to learn. Definitely a lot to learn about the business side of things, but it comes with time. I know I'm going to learn a lot when it comes through the years. Number one thing I would say is getting to have family time, because I don't get outside of work a lot. I don't get a lot of my family time with my grandpa and my dad together. So when I work with them, I really take it in as like this isn't gonna last forever. And so I sit there and watch and try to learn as much as I can, because I know I'm never gonna have it for forever. My grandpa and my dad have so much experience that I think they have so many things that they want to show me and teach me, that I think I have the best life I can ever ask for. Is that I have so much opportunity and so much given to me, and so much that people have shown to me, that I can definitely make it. So I have the best life ever.
But if you don't love what you do every day, then you're not doing what you're destined to do. And I believe we all love what we do.
Say logging is not what the general public has heard about. We are not out here to destroy the environment. A lot of us recreate in it, and we enjoy the outdoors, and we want to take care of it. That is why we do what we do.